Travel and Things in association with Sun Destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences, present In Conversation With. I'm your host, David Batsoffen, and today my guest is none other than one of the trio of musicians who were around in the 70s and 80s, Mel, Mel, and Julian, and that's Mel Green. And he's joining me from Boston. Good morning, Mel. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, David. It's a sunny day up here in the cold North Woods. It's midwinter. We're looking forward to getting through winter. You have no idea how cold it can get here, so it's nice to be indoors. Very warm, thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to be talking to you today.
Great stuff. So tell us about your memoir, because I know this is no small book, Mel. This is over 500 pages
It
of an e.
is.
This is not a toilet read. This is something that you have to lock yourself in a room,
Yeah.
and sort of keep your family at bay. Talk me through it. Firstly, why a memoir at this particular point? And why not turn it into 3 books rather than a 500 pager?
Because to answer the last part of that question, why not 3 books? Because I had spoken to Julian at a few years ago already when I had told him that I was beginning to write this book. This was at the beginning or in the middle of the COVID, what we call
Mm-hmm.
the Great Disturbance here. Anyway, I was in touch with him, and he, being a not very communicative guy, eventually got hold of me and said, "I'm writing my own," and I got the impression it was very slow going with him
Mm.
for whatever reason, and I didn't nag him because I knew him. I knew that he would be doing this in his own good time.
Right.
Whereas Mel Miller is concerned, he, as you do know from reading the book, this is the present. This is the one that's available. The one you saw on screen there, by the way, is I wanted to stand out, so I changed the color. But
Okay.
getting back to the book, I told Mel about this. I even sent it to him. He just gave me his blessing and said, just write. And I told him to please contribute. And if you notice, there is a chapter here that is basically one long quote from Mel Miller, because I would not claim to know everything about him, nor want to put it into his own words, because
Right.
Mel is Mel Miller, as we
Yeah.
all well know. God bless him. He is one of a kind and a dear friend. I wanted to come from his own mouth.
Okay.
Anyhow, anyway, I began the book, as I said, because of the following. My good friend David, not David, I beg your pardon, my good friend Brian Pretorius, who used to be quite connected with the Tiles Club in Durban, told me one day on Facebook that a lot of other musicians in Durban had started to write their own memoirs.
Right.
And why don't I write my own? Because, well, let's just say his opinion of them was not that good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I wrote this book because I have a good memory. I was in the middle of writing my family history, which is vast. So I had been writing for many years as it is anyway, and I enjoy the process. So I wrote down, I didn't know what to do. I'd read a lot of other biographies and autobiographies by other musicians, mostly famous ones. They all talk about their early lives. So I figured, okay, I'll write about mine. It got kind of long. If it was boring, forgive me, but that it's true. And
So
maybe I
can I halt you there? Because otherwise I'm
yes,
not going to get a word in this evening. Um, I want to go back to the beginnings of Mel, Mel, and Julian, because we have 2 parts to an audience here. We're going to have those who know who you were and who came to the Troubadour and who saw you there. And we're going to have people watching going, why am I watching this? And who the hell are Mel, Mel, and Julian? So take us back to the beginnings. How did you meet? Why did you form? Because, I mean, I can't imagine 3 disparate people. You've got Julian Laxton, who comes out of a hunting fishing family. You've got Mel Miller, who came out of all right, he had a printing, karate, stand-up comedy background. You come from a design background. I mean, at the end of the day, how did you meet? You know, it sounds like three men walk into a bar and say, let's form a folk group.
Okay, I'll tell you. This is how it began. My third year at design school was something that I'd been mulling over at UCT, and I decided to move up to the Johannesburg School of Art because I felt I wasn't getting an adequate design education. It was more fine art. So I arrive in Joburg. I stay at home with my dad in Mayfair, where I'm from originally, by the way. I come to school every day, and very slowly, as a third-year guy, not knowing a soul in the school, I get slowly used to the environment. I went in one day at lunchtime, and I noticed there was a hubbub in their common room. There was this chap regaling the crowd with jokes. I stood at the doorway for a little while and went on my way. I didn't give it much notice because I had to go upstairs in a hurry. The following day and the following week, the same things happened. Mel Miller was regaling a crowd, and the crowd was pissing themselves, laughing. And anyway, I didn't think much of that either, because although I love comedy, I didn't know them well enough to go and sit down. As I said, I was a busy little guy. I just brought my own guitar. I went upstairs, had my lunch, and played guitar. One day I was singing 500 miles, just to jump forward a little bit. And all of a sudden, this voice comes from behind me, singing beautiful harmony. It's Mel Miller. This is our very first meeting at art school. I smile at him. We sing some more. We stop. We chat a little bit. And this goes on. And he starts to come upstairs regularly at lunchtime to sing with me, not thinking much of it. And one day I told him, I said, listen, there's this place called the Troubadour that I found not far from here. Why don't you come over one night and let's sing them a song? Because we knew 3 songs, literally 3 songs.
Which were?
One of them was 500 miles. I'll have to think. I don't want to stop the flow here. So one was 500 miles. There were 2 others. I don't remember very much what they were at all right at this point. Anyway, I persuade him to come the following Wednesday, let's say, evening. We go there together. And there is Keith Blundell was managing the place that
Correct.
evening. And I had, by the way, sorry to be so disjointed, I had begun working there in the meantime as a waiter, just so that I could see these guys regularly and not pay to get in and get a sandwich. And I was watching their fingers as they were playing. I was picking up tips because, it's very difficult to learn guitar if you have no visual reference other than a chord book. Anyway, here we go. Back to Mel and I coming in there one night. He liked the place. I said, what do you think? Should we do something? And Mel Miller was a little reluctant. And anyway, we didn't go in there. I said, let's do this again, but let's practice 3 songs, and I will ask whether we can do 3 songs for them, just for the hell of it, to see what they think of us, because we sounded pretty good. People told us so, even that early. We sounded very wonderful as a duo harmony group. I sang the harmony mostly. Mel sang his wonderful, forceful baritone tenor. I played very simple guitar. We go in the following week. We get up on stage at Keith's bidding. We sing our 3 songs. He says, thank you. We go back down. He says, he beckons us over to him. We sit down with him. And he says to us, well, you guys are very good. How many songs do you know? Because there is a gig coming free very soon. One of the regulars is going to be leaving, and the entire night is going to be free. Would you like a gig? I look at Mel.
How
He
long
looks at me.
was the whole night, Mel?
Let me finish. This is important here. Keith asks us, meanwhile, he says, how many songs do you guys know? Now, you might recall, I admit to have had a very bad stammer. So Keith says, how many songs do you know? And I say, Miller says, 30. He says, me and Keith, he says, you're on. The gig is yours if you want it. I was gobsmacked. I didn't know what to say. I didn't say, no, we can't. Mel Miller pulls me aside because he is very great at grabbing an opportunity, whereas I am a little bit more shy. The truth was that we went away and we bunked for 3 weeks from art school and learned our 30 songs and came in, and that's how Mel began.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I go
So
further?
I was going to say, so where did Julian come into the mix?
Well, a year passes, and Mel and I have had a very successful time at the Troubadour. We are now going from Wednesday nights to being asked to be guests with Des and Keith and the others on Saturday evenings because we have drawn a crowd.
Okay.
And the reason we drew the crowd is this, and this is also rather important, is because the very first night we had our gig, that Wednesday night gig, we sang our 30 songs and didn't even fill half of the night, which lasted 4 hours, to answer an earlier question. So,
Pardon me.
so Miller calls me, we go to the back room at a break, and he says, Jesus, what do we do now? I said, you know those jokes you tell, Miller? Maybe you should tell a couple of jokes in between because that'll fill in some time. Or maybe he said it. I don't know. This is a long time ago, but that was the upshot was we went back, we repeated the show, but this time we had a joke in between each one or some little funny little little thing going on that it immediately caused an immediate rapport with the audience, and within the following year we had built up a reputation very quickly, and by the end of that year we were ready to sing at the folk festival.
What year are
But
we talking about, Mel?
we're talking about 1965, the beginning of 1965, end of 64.
Okay.
What happened was we had been signed up to sing at a folk festival the previous year, and we were so good, evidently, that they asked us to be whether we'd like to be included on the album.
Mm-hmm.
We did 3 songs, everybody else did 2. Don't ask me how that happened. But eventually CBS South Africa, Columbia South Africa came back to us and said, we need you guys to come and do a full-length LP. Miller and I said, I don't think my guitar skills are good enough to do this. And David Sapphire enters the picture, and he is Julian's elder brother. He's half brother.
Okay.
He says, I have a brother who is a lead guitarist who's out of work, who can play anything at all. Would you like to try him out? We tried him out. He was fabulous already. He glommed onto the songs in no time. We came up with 12 songs. We did the LP. We did, and immediately we knew we'd want him to join us. So to go back a little bit now, and I'm sorry I'm going back and forth because
Doesn't matter. I'll stop you and steer you correct if I feel the need.
Meanwhile, at the beginning of 1965, Miller and I had taken up our full-time jobs. I in advertising, he in interior design. I worked at Afamel Advertising down on Commissioner Street, he somewhere else. We did our gigs at the Troubadour very often, and we did. Then the second folk festival came around. We got up on stage and did our set with Julian backing us up. Why not? We're Mel and Mel with Julian. Lo and behold, in the audience that night was a chap with a very, very famous name in South Africa by the name of Don Hughes.
Well, I worked for Don, believe it or not.
I do believe it. Don Hughes Organization.
Yep.
he he collared us when after the show was done at the Troubadour that evening and said the following. He said, I am going down to Durban next week and I'm going to get you guys a gig at the best hotel in South Africa. What do you say? Mel and I didn't have too much to say at all because we had full-time jobs. And we thought, what the heck? See what happens. Well, Don returned a week or so later and, in fact, did offer us a 3-month gig at the Edward and another month at Deal's Hotel. That was the beginning of the job.
Wow. It's interesting that it's Mel and Julian, because I mean, if Julian had been sort of Brian or Stephen, I don't know if the group would have sounded so cool. Mel and Brian. No, I don't think so. So you're lucky his name was Julian. How old were the three of you at this particular point? I take it it's early 20s.
Mel was 21. I had just turned 20. Julian was about to turn 20, and he was the youngest one. And when he joined us for our second gig at the Edward, which turned out to be a 6-month gig, it was perfect. He didn't have a job. Don Hughes was very, very affable and agreeable in going back to management at the Edward and getting them to sign Julian with us.
Right.
And the thing was that at the time we were not. I wasn't thinking in terms of money at all. But all I know is we were having the grandest time, doing something we loved to do, being paid for it, being fed, being in Durban for long stretches and other towns as well. And life was just hunky dory. It was wonderful.
What was the folk scene like back in those back in the 60s, early 70s?
Well, I
Because
can't.
you've done a book on that as well, folk scene of South Africa since the 60s.
I
Um,
have.
so was it vibrant? Because it seems to, I don't know, is folk music, and I say this with all respect, Mel, is folk music still a thing? Although
It is
that being
simply.
said, Joni Mitchell appeared at the Grammys on the recently and wowed them just sitting down and beating time with a cane.
That's
And
right.
and of course the voice is still there.
Well, I will tell you this, that yes, to answer a few questions, I can tell you that folk music is still vibrant up here in Boston and all over the United States, albeit on a small scale.
Mm,
People go, there are a number of very, very good performers who travel all the time from town to town, and they usually work in churches and there are house concerts and they earn a living, the good ones do. I'm sometimes the hundreds and thousands of dollars, which is not bad. And the
yeah,
rest
yeah.
of us, really, truly, and they call it mostly acoustic music these days
Mm,
for because folk music is such a mixed bag.
yeah.
And yes, it is still going very, very strong. To go back further to your earlier um, question about what was the folk scene like, I can only vouch for the 60s because I was only in South Africa doing this from 1964 until the time I left in 1970,
Hmm.
when I left for the United States.
Yeah.
And it was the most vibrant, most wonderful thing. If you liked that kind of thing, if you had some kind of an intellectual bent, if you felt that you had something that you enjoyed listening to, which had a story attached to it, that was so wonderful for me, and to meet the people who were almost all the most wonderful people you could ever meet. I mean, I could name names from here, but I mean, I remember the Tracy brothers from seeing Wait a Minute before I even
Mm,
begin. I can remember Jeremy Taylor. He was the one who basically was the one when I saw him, I had to learn to play that kind of music,
yeah.
which I began in Cape Town. I mean, I went to Joburg. I met the likes of Pete LaRue, who was singing back in the days of the cul-de-sac. Met the wonderful Blundells, Pamela and Keith Blundell and their family.
Mm,
I met Theo Kutsia eventually in Pretoria, who ran the club up there, which was called the Minstrel. And I met Richie Morris, Ian and Richie, who are wonderful people in themselves. I met Maureen England, who sang regularly at the at the Troubadour. Mike Sonnenberg of Leon and Mike, who were the most incredible duo, who were very early on were doing the most wonderfully driving folk music, very
Mm.
exciting stuff. Des and Dawn, of course. Des at first who was singing with Keith were the ones who absolutely fascinated me. I mean, all the time. I mean, they are the ones who I probably learned most from as an individual guitar player at the very least, and somebody who realized that you can sing openly and freely and wonderfully without any fear of whatever. You know, people sort of put on a singing voice. I could
Mm.
sing purely with them and not and know that I'd be appreciated. There was David Marks, who to me was a great friend. Colin Shamley was a great friend. Cornelia was another singer who was a close friend because um, a good roommate of mine was very good friends with her, which is how I got to know her. In fact, Cornelius' sister rented a room from me in Mayfair.
Oh, okay.
So, so it's a very small world, and it was quite wonderful. It was my world, to be honest with you. I just loved it. Of course, the other inevitable thing about the entertainment industry and being a singer was this: how do you begin in music in the first place? Well, my earliest influences were the Everly Brothers and Elvis Presley and Gene Vincent as the very earliest one.
Hmm.
Um, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard. I mean, that kind of rock and roll music took me, I was bazonkers for that music, and I always wanted to sing that music
Right.
but I had no idea how it was done. No idea at all. All I know is that my mum and I used to sing along to the LM Hit Parade very early on in my life. So that stuff came very early. Singing was with me ever since I was a baby. So anyway, when I discovered folk music, I knew I had come home,
You wanted
so
to
to
leap on
speak.
that particular bus.
I leapt on that bus and held on for dear life.
You
And it was, anyway, sorry?
No, you keep talking about your guitar playing, and I see in the background there are two guitars. Um,
Yes,
do you still have the guitar that you started with?
I do, as a matter of fact.
And
It's
does it
hanging
have
on,
a name?
that's the one hanging on the wall. I don't know if you can
Okay.
see it.
And does it have a name? Um, Willie
Trigger.
Nelson's guitar is called Trigger, and it looks like it's been beaten to within an inch of its life. I was at the Willie Nelson shop in Nashville some years ago, and I went to have a look at the guitar. I don't know how it still makes a sound, but
I can tell you exactly why.
yeah,
Uh,
because of the way it's been damaged, it's got a totally different sound now.
right.
So does yours have? That was a long way around. Does yours have a name?
It doesn't have a name.
Ah,
I never had a name. All I know is that it is very, very dear for me. I gave it to my brother who batted the shit out of it. Excuse my
right.
French. And but I got it back and it's hanging on the wall without machine heads because I've got to fix it. I still have great trust that it will still have a good voice if I just fix it. The other guitar is one of my favorite new ones. It's a relatively new. This guitar is nearly 20 years old.
What is that?
Did you see it?
I can see it. What is it?
It's a Taylor guitar.
Okay, and the older one?
That's a Hofner,
Okay,
like Paul McCartney's Hofner bass, same factory.
right. Okay.
And I've got a lot of guitars. I hate to say it. That's my one indulgence. Um,
You
I,
know,
I, I love
if it's a passion, Mel, if you think about it, you know, if you look at Bruce Springsteen, for instance, Springsteen has a studio. I think he's got over 100 guitars, and
right.
I should imagine they're all tuned slightly differently, so that if he feels like playing something, he knows which guitar to pick up.
Well,
But
I wouldn't know.
at the end of the day, you say it's your indulgence, and it's like anything. Photographers want more cameras. Women, I'm not going down that road because some of my viewers may be offended. So let's leave that one alone. But I see we're slowly running out of time. I've already just had the 10-minute warning, would you believe? So let's go back to the book. It's a
Yeah,
Is it available as a hard copy book? Is
it
it available?
is.
So there it is, all
It's a
503 pages of it.
it's
It's a
available.
Does it get delivered to South Africa, or can people buy it online as an ebook?
You can do both, but I believe that Amazon now is working in South Africa. You can try to buy it through Amazon, and I
Right.
think you might be able to get it. And the other one as well, both of them,
Are they? But is the older one still in print?
This one,
No, the other one, the folksy.
this is the more recent one, and they're both in print,
Oh, okay. Well, that's
both
great.
from Amazon.
Now, a question that I ask all the authors, we'll get to that CD in a moment. Oh, I have to tell you, there is a local musician who's gone one step further with music. It was cassette tapes, then it was vinyl, and then it was CDs, and then DVDs. And now there's a local musician who's putting his music out on a stick.
That's right.
Yeah, which I think is amazing. It really and truly is. It's the way of the future. It's either that or pulling it out of the ether and straight onto a phone or something like that. But to get back to the book, a question that I ask all the authors that I talk to. Your book is available in a bookshop, I should imagine. Do you? Not at all. So you're not one of those authors that walk into the bookstore and go, "Oh, look, it's a book by Mel Green. I wonder how good it is." Standing there with a book in your hand.
I wish. I do not have the wherewithal, frankly, to go and do this. A publisher was interested, but I have not gone that route. I
Right.
wish I had in some ways, but it's only available on Amazon, which is maybe not so smart. But what can I say? It's only available on Amazon, and what can I
And
say? That's
for people who were Mel and Julian fans, it follows the career paths of all three of you. I know Julian is no longer with us. He died a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, baby of the group, you and Mel have now hit the ripe old age of 80. What Here's a question. As your 20-year-old self, if your 20-year-old self had to say to tell your 80-year-old self something
you're talking.
about your career path and about the music, what what would you have told you now?
I would have said, you idiot, you shouldn't have split the group. You should have stuck with it. But because frankly, I know Mel and Julian went a lot further than I did, and frankly, a lot of my life has been trying to follow that path or catch up again.
Mm.
It's quite true.
Do
I still love performing, and I envy them their success. It's true.
Yeah.
It's one of the most memorable parts of my life. And if I were born again, I'd do it again.
Would you?
Yes.
And you say that you still perform. Do you perform regularly? Do you perform at sort of community events, folk festivals? Where would one find Mel Green in Boston? Not at the Cheers pub.
Not to Cheers plug, the easiest things that we do these days are what they call open mics in the various communities around. It's quite a large community of singers
Mm.
and folk singers and whatnot. And we get together regularly. I do this at least twice a month, sometimes three times a month. You can get one almost on a Sunday, on a Monday,
Mm.
or a Tuesday. Sometimes at other places. I keep my ear open for open mics all the time. It's the simplest thing to do. You go, you do a couple of songs. You don't get paid.
No,
Occasionally
but
one. Yeah,
it's the
but
fun of standing up on stage and just performing
yes.
in front of an audience.
But I have often gotten features which are like
Mm.
half hour long.
Oh,
which
okay.
I revel in, and they pass the hat, and it's pocket money, frankly, and which is very, very welcome.
Pays for
And
your strings.
yes, I mean, I'll always be a busker, I suppose. And I'm being 80 years old. I can tell you my 20-year-old is still alive and well.
Well, that's great. You know, Clint Eastwood at 90, who's making another movie, was
Right.
asked how he does it. And he says, you don't let the old man in. And Toby Keith, who died just a few days ago,
Yeah.
has just written a song called Don't Let the Old Man In, just before he
Perfect.
died,
Perfect.
complications from stomach cancer. But I think it's amazing. But now you have, what is that, a CD?
It's my CD. I'm taking my time, which is what I started doing almost 10 years ago. And the reason being is I'm taking my time was written because I had gone through a medical problem,
Okay,
including which was basically, to be frank, very close to being a stomach cancer.
right.
I missed it by a hair, but the song is my appreciation of taking one's time in life.
Yeah,
It also changed my life. It gave me a second chance.
that's wonderful, Mel. And where is that available?
From me, if you want one, get in touch via my email,
The email.
or visit my site, which is melgreensings.com. Leave
Okay,
a message if you want one, and we can arrange it. It's basically the equivalent of 15 American dollars plus plus shipping. And some people will buy it. If you want one, I will tell you, I'm very proud of this. It's very well produced and it sounds great. People love it.
what
They're all my own songs.
wonderful. I think that's great. Mel, we're almost out of time. We've got another 2 minutes. Oh, another one. Mel and
This,
Julian songs.
this is
Yay.
available now from me,
Mm.
and it's called Mel and Julian Ethnic Schmethnick, which is something that Mel Miller said once. And this is also available, and I've got plenty of them in the basement. And there were two other albums, but this is not available because I was told recently by CBS/Sony that they're putting it up online on the Gallo
Ah,
Africa site.
they've taken your music away. I've got to bring this to a close, unfortunately, Mel. The
Yeah.
book and everything else is available. The book from Amazon, the music from Mel Green Sings. Um, give us that email that address again.
It's melgreensings.com.
.com. It's as simple as that. Mel,
Simple.
I've spoken to two Mels. Unfortunately, I can't chat to Julian anymore, but I've spoken to both Mels this week. I think it's been wonderful. Thank you so very much for joining me. I wish you all the best with the book. I wish you all the best with your music, and please keep plucking the strings.
Thank you so very, very much, David. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to blab so long. And
It's only a pleasure. My guest today on In Conversation with Mel Green from Mel and Julie.